September 12th, 1958. Harlem, New York City. 300 people are packed inside the Lenox Lounge. Cigarette smoke hangs heavy. Jazz hums low. Glasses clink. Laughter covers secrets. At a corner table sits Ellsworth "Bumpy" Johnson, Harlem's undisputed power broker. Calm, immaculate, untouchable. Behind him stands a man he trusts with his life, Big Sam. For 5 years, Sam has been more than muscle. He's family. He's the man Bumpy called brother. Tonight, the Italian Mafia believes loyalty has a price. $50,000. Sam steps forward. He raises the gun. He aims at the back of Bumpy Johnson's head. And then, a sound echoes through Harlem history. A sound that triggers emergency meetings among the 5 families. A sound that rewrites power in New York. A sound people still whisper about 60 years later. Because what happened next wasn't supposed to be possible. And for the rest of his life, whenever Bumpy Johnson's name was spoken, it always came back to this night. The night Big Sam pulled the trigger. The night Harlem didn't fall. To understand why this moment mattered, you have to understand who Bumpy Johnson was and who he was not. Born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1905, Bumpy Johnson arrived in Harlem during its most violent transformation. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't reckless, and unlike many men who chased power, Bumpy believed violence was a last resort, not a language. By the 1930s and 40s, Harlem belonged to him, not officially, not on paper, but in practice. Numbers runners, clubs, landlords, politicians, everyone knew where authority ended. And here's the part history often forgets. Bumpy Johnson took care of Harlem. Rent money for widows, groceries for families, quiet help that never made headlines. That's why people didn't just fear him, they respected him. That respect extended beyond race. Bumpy negotiated directly with the Italian Mafia, men like Lucky Luciano, on equal footing. Harlem was profitable, but it wasn't weak. And that balance held until betrayal entered the room.
Big Sam wasn't born a traitor. He was born a survivor. By the early 1950s, Sam had become Bumpy Johnson's personal bodyguard. Trusted, tested, always present. If Bumpy walked into a room, Sam walked in first. If danger came, it came through Sam. People noticed something else. Sam wasn't reckless. He was disciplined. The kind of man who never left home without his .45. Which makes what happened next difficult to explain. According to long-circulated accounts, the Mafia approached Sam quietly. No threats, no violence. Just an offer. $50,000, a fortune in 1958. Half up front. And a promise that once Bumpy was gone, Sam wouldn't be a problem for long anyway. Because here's the truth most people miss. If Sam had succeeded, the 5 families would have eliminated him immediately after. Loose ends don't get retirement plans. Some say Sam believed he could outthink everyone. Others say desperation clouded judgment. And some insist this story doesn't add up at all. Because there's one question historians still argue over. Why would a professional bodyguard walk into that room without his own gun?
That night at the Lenox Lounge, nothing felt unusual. Music played, drinks flowed, Harlem breathed easy. Bumpy Johnson sat with his back partially turned, relaxed, unguarded. That alone tells you something about the trust in that room. Sam entered, calm, No visible weapon, no tension on his face. Witnesses say time slowed. Sam raised the gun. He aimed. He pulled the trigger. And that's where the stories diverge. Some swear the gun misfired. Others say the sound wasn't a shot at all, but something else entirely. A noise that froze the room. A moment that flipped the script. What everyone agrees on is this: Bumpy Johnson did not fall. Sam did not walk out a winner. And Harlem did not lose its king. Within hours, whispers reached the 5 families. Emergency meetings followed. Plans were reconsidered. Lines were redrawn. Because whatever happened in those 60 seconds sent a message no one expected. A message that said Harlem was not for sale. A message that said betrayal had limits. A message that said some men write their endings before anyone else can. And the most dangerous part? There's one detail about Bumpy Johnson's whereabouts in 1958 that threatens to unravel this entire story. But that truth doesn't surface until much later.
No one agrees on what the sound actually was. Some witnesses swore they heard a click. Others insist it was a bang. A few said it sounded like something hitting the floor. What matters is what didn't happen. Bumpy Johnson didn't slump forward. He didn't bleed. He didn't even turn around right away. Instead, according to multiple accounts, he raised one hand. Not in panic, not in fear, in command. The room went silent. 300 people froze. Musicians stopped mid-note. Glasses hovered in mid-air. Bumpy stood up slowly. Only then did he turn. Big Sam was still holding the gun. And in that moment, everyone in the Lenox Lounge understood the truth the Mafia had underestimated. This wasn't just an assassination attempt. It was a test of power. And Bumpy Johnson was about to answer it without firing a single shot.
Here's where the story takes a turn most mob legends never do. Bumpy Johnson didn't order Sam killed. That decision shocked everyone. In the Mafia's world, betrayal had only one ending, but Bumpy played a longer game. He looked at Sam, not with rage, but with disappointment. And according to people close to the room, Bumpy said just enough to make Sam understand what he'd done and what it would cost him. Sam was disarmed. He was removed quietly, and then he was erased, not from life, but from power. No more protection, no more status, no more future in Harlem. Bumpy understood something the 5 families didn't. If Sam died, his daughter would pay the price. If Sam lived, Sam would pay it every single day. That wasn't mercy. That was judgment.
By morning, the story had reached Manhattan, then Brooklyn, then the inner rooms no outsiders ever saw. Emergency meetings were called among the 5 families, not to celebrate, but to recalculate, because the plan had failed in the worst possible way. Bumpy Johnson was alive, Sam was neutralized, and Harlem hadn't erupted into chaos. That meant only one thing. The Italians had misread Harlem completely. They'd assumed fear ruled the streets. They'd assumed betrayal was universal. They'd assumed Bumpy Johnson was replaceable. He wasn't. From that point forward, the Mafia's posture toward Harlem changed. Quiet negotiations replaced bold moves. Lines hardened. Respect, real respect, was enforced. Not by bullets, but by the understanding that Harlem answered to its own king.
Now comes the contradiction that refuses to die. Official records state that Bumpy Johnson was sentenced to Alcatraz in 1952, with an 11-year term that should have kept him locked away until 1963. So how could he be sitting in the Lenox Lounge in 1958? This isn't a small error. It's a crack in the foundation. Some historians argue Bumpy was temporarily transferred. Others believe the Lenox Lounge story was misdated. And some suggest something far more uncomfortable, that parts of Bumpy Johnson's movements were never meant to be documented at all. Because if Bumpy was in Harlem that night, then Alcatraz didn't hold him the way history claims. And that raises a far more dangerous question. Was Bumpy Johnson ever really out of reach?
If the Lenox Lounge was about survival, Small's Paradise was about message. Years later, another story circulated through Harlem like scripture. Bumpy Johnson, freshly released, steps off a train and heads straight to the legendary nightclub. No entourage, no announcement, just presence. Inside sits Marcus, a former protege, younger, ambitious, a man who believed the throne had been left unattended. Bumpy doesn't shout, he doesn't threaten, he simply sits down. Witnesses say the room went quiet, not out of fear, but recognition. The king had returned. No one was harmed that night, no gun was drawn. And yet the message landed harder than violence ever could. Power doesn't need permission to reclaim itself.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. Not every story about Bumpy Johnson can be proven, and that's exactly why they survive. Street history doesn't operate like court records. It's passed down through memory, reputation, and warning. The details blur, but the lesson stays sharp. In Harlem, Bumpy Johnson became more than a man. He became a signal. Cross certain lines, and consequences follow. Respect certain boundaries, and order remains. That's why stories about Lenox Lounge and Small's Paradise endure, even when timelines clash. Because the truth Harlem cared about wasn't when it happened, it was what it meant.
Big Sam didn't vanish overnight, but he vanished from relevance. After September 1958, his name stopped carrying weight. Doors closed, calls went unanswered, protection disappeared. That's the punishment most people never talk about. Death is quick. Isolation is permanent. Sam lived, but without trust, without position, without a future inside Harlem's ecosystem. And there's a darker irony here. Had Sam succeeded, the Mafia would have killed him anyway. By sparing him, Bumpy ensured Sam lived long enough to understand exactly what betrayal costs.
After Lenox Lounge, something changed. The Italian Mafia didn't retreat because of fear. They retreated because of math. Killing Bumpy Johnson wouldn't fracture Harlem, it would ignite it. The cost outweighed the reward. Bumpy had done what few ever managed. He made himself more valuable alive than dead. From then on, negotiations replaced aggression. Harlem remained autonomous, not peaceful, but balanced. And balance in organized crime is everything.
Bumpy Johnson would die years later, quietly, suddenly, not by gunfire. But long before that, the streets had already decided something important. You don't kill a king who's already written your ending. Lenox Lounge wasn't about a failed hit. It was about restraint, control, and a kind of power that doesn't need blood to enforce itself. That's why, decades later, people still argue over the details. Because when history leaves gaps, legend steps in, and Harlem remembers its kings.
After 1958, Harlem didn't explode. That surprised everyone. No war, no public retaliation, no blood in the streets. Instead, something older took over. Order. Bumpy Johnson returned to business as usual. Numbers ran, clubs opened, money moved.
The same routines, the same calm authority. But beneath the surface, everyone understood the shift. The rules had hardened. Loyalty wasn't assumed anymore. It was measured. Silence became currency. And the message from Lenox Lounge lingered like a warning sign. No one needed to read twice. Harlem wasn't lawless. It was governed.
Here's another truth most stories avoid. Bumpy Johnson didn't just manage Harlem's underworld. He understood the system above it. Police knew him. Politicians knew him. Federal authorities tracked him. And yet, he moved with a kind of restraint that made prosecution difficult. No paper trails, no unnecessary violence, no chaos that demanded intervention. This wasn't arrogance. It was strategy. Bumpy knew something most criminals never learn. The moment you become unpredictable, the state replaces you. So he stayed predictable.
Years passed. The streets changed. New players rose. Old names faded. But Bumpy Johnson remained. Older now. Slower. But still respected. Not feared like before. Respected. That's the difference time makes. People stopped talking about what he might do and started remembering what he had done. Lenox Lounge became a story elders told younger men, not as a boast, but as instruction. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just survives.
February 7th, 1968. Bumpy Johnson sits in a Harlem restaurant. Not a club, not a back room, a public place. He orders coffee. And then, without warning, his heart gives out. No gunshots, no rivals, no betrayal. Just silence. The man who survived plots, prisons, and power struggles didn't fall to violence. He died the way kings rarely do, naturally. And in that moment, Harlem lost more than a man. It lost a balance that had been holding for decades. After Bumpy Johnson's death in 1968, Harlem didn't immediately fall apart. That's important. The systems he built didn't collapse overnight. The respect he enforced didn't vanish with him. For a time, things held. But something essential was missing. There was no single figure who could command restraint the way Bumpy had. No one who could speak softly and still be heard by everyone, from street operators to outside power brokers. What followed wasn't chaos. It was fragmentation. And fragmentation is always the beginning of the end. In the years after Bumpy, outside forces tried again to gain influence. Some succeeded briefly. Most didn't. Because the lesson of Lenox Lounge still lingered, unspoken, but understood. Harlem wasn't conquered by force. It changed because the old rules aged out. Bumpy Johnson hadn't just controlled territory, he'd controlled tempo. Without him, the rhythm broke. And once rhythm is gone, power becomes noisy. Historians still argue over September 12, 1958. Some say the gun misfired. Some say it was never loaded. Some question whether the moment happened exactly as remembered. And they may be right. But here's the truth true crime documentaries eventually confront. Records tell you what can be proven. Legends tell you what mattered. Lenox Lounge mattered. Not because of what was fired, but because of what wasn't. Big Sam never reclaimed his place. No redemption arc. No return to power. No final confrontation. His punishment was quieter than death. He lived knowing he'd been bought. Knowing the money wasn't worth it. Knowing history remembered the moment, but not him.
In Harlem, that's the harshest sentence of all. To be remembered only as the man who tried and failed.
So let's return to that sound, the one people argue about. Was it a click? A bang? A signal? Maybe it doesn't matter, because what followed was unmistakable. No retaliation, no takeover, no collapse, just a recalibration of power. That sound didn't end a life. It ended an idea that Harlem could be taken from the inside.
Bumpy Johnson understood something few ever do. If you build power only on fear, it dies with you. If you build it on balance, it echoes. That's why 50 years later, people still debate this night, still question the timelines, still replay the moment. Because you can't kill a king who's already written your ending. And in Harlem, that sound never really stopped echoing.